A Whole New World. Epilogue. Agrabah was exhausted after its week of punishment, nights of siege, and then excessive partying. To celebrate their rebound freedom, people had stayed out in the streets until dawn, dancing and singing and chatting with old neighbors and new friends. The moon set on the festivities, and the sun rose on the sleepy aftermath. Dubon, Jasmine, Aladdin, the genie, and Morgiana eventually made their way back to the palace in the rosy glow of the earthy sun. Maruf, Shirin, and Ahmed, and what seemed like half the children of Agrabah, were availing themselves of the old sultan's toys in the next room. Their happy noises contrasted with the thoughtful silence of the 5 people who had the kingdom to rebuild. Dubon desultorily kicked at Al-Azif, now a smoldering, almost unrecognizable heap of paper and ashes. "There's the lamp," Aladdin suddenly noticed. It lay on the floor, battered and tarnished, and the same old piece of brass it was when it had first found it. What a long time ago that seemed. Aladdin sighed. Everything he ever thought possible had happened, and then everything had returned to normal, back to the way it was before. Well, except for the branding, the executions, and what happened to Dubon and the entire city, of course. There was all that to deal with. And he was certainly different. He picked up the lamp and handed it to the genie, who took it with a sad smile. "What a piece of junk," the genie said. "And also a walk-up. I can't believe I stayed there for 10,000 years. Even if it was rent-controlled." His voice drifted off, his heart not really in it. "Yeah, I think I'm done here," he said finally. "Hey, princess, remember that thing I told you about traveling the world, getting away from the place where my people were wiped out?" "Yes," Jasmine said gently. She guessed what was coming next, even if she didn't like it. "I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out and see the world. Find some snow, start a new life. As a human, somehow." She nodded sadly and took his hands in hers. She marveled at how quickly she had gotten used to someone who was blue, and now he no longer was. "Thank you for everything, and I'm so sorry. About everything." She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him on the cheek. Aladdin came over and clasped his hand. "I'm sorry you're going. I wish we could have gotten to know each other better. You seem like one of the good guys." The genie gave a weak smile. "This is too much," Jasmine said with a sigh. I wish Jafar hadn't... I wish I had..." Aladdin smiled and pushed a stray hair of hers back behind her ear, like he had longed to from the beginning. "Wishes are over," he whispered with a sad smile. "Maybe they never were, really." "Genie," Dubon suddenly called out, "I'll come with you." "What?" the genie asked, surprised. "I can't stay here," Dubon said bitterly. "My dad was right. I shouldn't have killed Jafar like that. It didn't need to be done that way. My own family can barely stand to look at me now." "Dubon, no," Morgiana pleaded. "They're kids. They'll get over it. Stay here. It's all right. We'll get through it together. It was just one mistake." "It was a pretty big mistake. No, I have to make amends, on my own way. I'll come back someday," Dubon promised with a sad smile. "When it feels right." "Stubborn he-goat," Morgiana muttered, sniffing loudly. Dubon laughed softly and came forward, kissing her on the forehead. "Well, all right then," the genie said cautiously, but sounding happier. "We'll travel the world, escaping our past. Penance buddies. Let's pack it up and go, Shorty." He looked lost for a moment. Perhaps he had tried to summon a backpack or a travel trunk. None appeared. A strange expression came over him. Aladdin recognized it after a moment. It was very much like when you're in a dream and you know you're in a dream, and you feel like you should be able to do anything you want, but you can't. Finally, the genie just shook his head and headed for the door. "Hate long goodbyes," he said. 10,000 years of watching you guys live and die will do that. So, bye." "I hope you find peace," Jasmine whispered. Dubon gave Aladdin a little salute and bowed deeply to Jasmine. "Sultana," he whispered, and then he followed the genie out. And that was it. They were gone. Morgiana watched them for a moment, trying not to sniffle. "Those kids are tearing up my future office," she finally growled, stopping up to break the news to Maruf and the kids. Jasmine sighed and walked to the balcony to look out over the city. The time for wishes might be over, but so was the time for tears. Aladdin came over and stood next to her and put his hand on her shoulder. Together they watched the crowd slowly disperse and the still smoldering fires smoke. "This is going to take a long time to fix," she said. Yes, but you're up to the task. You're going to be a great sultana. You understand better than anyone that there are two cities in Agrabah. You've really seen poverty and understand it. You've experienced unlimited power and know how to avoid its traps, and you have us. You have the street rats for when you forget. I'll make Agrabah the greatest city in the world, Jasmine said softly. And the street rats and the guilds and the other community leaders will be as much a part of my council as the old ministers and visitors, who it's time to replace anyway. Yeah, especially the Grand Vizir, Aladdin said, trying not to shiver. He shook himself. All right, Agrabah Day 1. Let's start. So, are all the street rats going to be on your council? Even Maruf? Jasmine laughed. He might get an honorary advisory role and thanks for his support in the rebellion, but I already told Morgiana I'm making her my Grand Vizir. She is one smart lady. I think she'll be able to handle it very well. Aladdin wondered if his old friend would mature into the role of someone who could resist the urge to stab anyone who disagreed with her. What about me? He pouted. I'm smart, I'm tough, and I've been with you from the beginning. You're going to be too busy, darling, she says, patting his hand distractedly. As prince, you'll have other responsibilities and duties, but believe me, they'll be just as important. Aladdin opened his mouth to argue and then stopped. Wait, what did you say? Jasmine just kissed him. Aladdin grinned and wrapped her in his arms. Prince. He could, at this point, take or leave. The rest of his life with Jasmine, however, that was worth everything.